They told me to wear the grey dress because no one would look at me anyway. I did not argue. Arguing with my aunt about clothing was the kind of fight you won at the cost of 3 other fights you needed more. I put on the grey dress. I let her braid my hair the plain way, the way she braided it for funerals and for the days she sent me to the healer to be poked at again. I stood very still and counted, in my head, the number of women in our pack who had been sent to a mating ceremony in a grey dress and come home alone in the same one. 8. I was going to be the 9th. That was the arrangement my aunt had made with herself, and I had stopped trying to convince her otherwise about a year ago. A healer had said the word once, in a back room, with a candle going out behind her, and after that, I belonged to that word more than I belonged to myself. Barren. It is a small word. It sits on you like a stone you cannot set down. I was 23 years old, and I had not been touched kindly in a long time. The ceremony was being held at the Iron Keep, 3 days' ride north, in the Alpha King's Hall. Every tributary pack within the Iron Territories sent its unmated women of marriageable age. The king had not chosen a Luna in the 11 years he had ruled. The pack mothers said this was because nothing was good enough for him. I had a different theory. I thought he simply had not found a thing he wanted, and I did not blame him for that. I was not supposed to be among them. My aunt had argued for 2 days that sending me was an insult to the king and a waste of a horse. Our pack mother had argued back that omitting one of his summoned women would be the kind of slight that ended in a visit from the king's men. My aunt lost. I was put on a horse. I rode north between 2 of my cousins, who took turns pretending I was not there. Noticing is the only thing I have ever been particularly good at, and I noticed plenty on the road. That the king's roads were better kept than ours, that the villages we passed through looked at us with a tired sort of pity, the way you look at sheep being walked somewhere they do not yet know about. That when we crested the last ridge, I had been holding my breath. The Iron Keep was not what I expected. I had built a fortress in my head out of the songs about him, the Iron King, cold and cruel and unyielding. What I saw instead was a great grey stone hall on a rise above a river, with smoke coming up out of 3 chimneys in a way that suggested someone inside was baking something. The gates stood open. I noticed that too, that the gates stood open. We were sorted by pack. The powerful tributaries near the front, my pack, small, poor, good wool and not much else, toward the back. And me, behind the others in my pack, because I was the unwanted one, and my aunt had been clear about where I belonged in the order. I did not mind. The back gave me a view of everything. The beater came down the great staircase first, with the look of a man who has been managing things for a long time and is not going to start enjoying it now. He read out the order of presentation. He explained the rite. He told us, twice, that the king would walk the chamber and that those he passed should not raise their eyes unless he stopped. I had already decided I was going to raise my eyes anyway. I had ridden 3 days. I felt I was owed a look. Then the king came down the stairs. I expected a wall of a man, the kind of presence that makes the candles seem dimmer and every woman in the chamber forget she had a spine. He was a wall of a man. The candles did get dimmer, somehow, or I imagined they did. Every woman around me did, audibly, forget her spine, including my 2 cousins, who I had genuinely believed incapable of being impressed by anything that was not a horse. What I had not expected was that he would look tired. He came down the stairs the way a man comes downstairs he has come down too many times. Tall, dark hair going silver at the temples in a way that did not age him so much as sharpen him. wearing grey, a scar that ran from his jaw down into his collar. He let his eyes go over us the way the pack mothers had warned us about. The count, mechanical, livestock. They had said, "Do not flinch. He will respect a woman who does not flinch." I did not flinch. But I also did not stand the way the others were standing. I was tired too. I had been tired for a year. I let my mouth do the small, dry thing it does when I am thinking about something I will not say out loud. I was thinking just then that this man looked like he wanted to be doing literally anything else. His eyes reached the back row. His eyes reached me. His eyes stopped. I will tell you precisely what happened, because I have replayed it enough that I can. He looked at me. His face did not change. Nothing in his posture moved. But the count in his eyes, the steady, mechanical count he had been doing along the row, stopped. He held my gaze the way a man holds the handle of a door he was not planning to open, for perhaps 3 breaths. The chamber, which had been making small noises a moment ago, stopped making them. Then he said something quietly to the beater, without looking away from me. The beater turned the colour of a man who has been handed a problem he has been afraid of for a long time. He recovered. He cleared his throat. He said, "The king will now walk the chamber." The king did not walk the chamber. The king walked, directly and with no apparent interest in any of the women between him and the back row, to me. He stopped 3 paces away. He inclined his head. Not a bow, but the kind of small, grave acknowledgement a king gives someone he is choosing to recognise. The hall behind him went very still. "What is your name?" he said. His voice was lower than I had expected, lower and quieter. He did not project. A man whose voice carries by reputation alone does not need to project. "Wren," I said. "Of the Lowford pack." "Wren of the Lowford pack," he repeated. He said it the way you taste a thing, the way you confirm a thing. He turned to the beater. "This one," he said. The beater said, "Sire," with the careful, patient tone of a man who was about to ask the king to please reconsider in front of 300 people, and then thought better of it. The hall did not erupt. Iron wolves do not erupt. The hall did the thing wolf packs do when they have been told, very precisely, to hold still. It held still and watched. I felt 300 pairs of eyes settle on the grey dress I was wearing, and the plain braid down my back, and the absolute lack of jewellery at my throat. I felt my aunt stare from somewhere near the front, white-hot, furious, already composing the letter she would write the pack mother about this. And I felt, somewhere I had not known I had, a thing that was not fear. I did not know what it was. I had not had a name for it in a long time. The king looked back at me. His eyes had not done anything dramatic. They were just steady, dark, and, if I was reading him correctly, and I was not yet sure I was, relieved. "Will you come with me?" he said. It was not a question I was being permitted to refuse, exactly, but he had said it like a question. He had said it like a man who, given the choice, would have preferred not to make me feel commanded. I noticed that. "Yes," I said. I had not meant to say it that quickly. It had come out the way breath comes out when you did not know you were holding it. He noticed. The corner of his mouth did something, not a smile, just a small acknowledgement. And then he extended his hand, palm up, between us. I put my hand in his. His was warm, that was the first thing. The second was that he did not close his fingers immediately. He waited a heartbeat, as if to confirm I had chosen this, and then closed them gently around mine. He walked me out of the hall. 300 unmated women, 80 pack elders, 15 Iron Wolf advisors, and one absolutely catastrophic beater watched us go. I learned later, from a maid who liked to gossip, that my aunt fainted. He brought me through corridors that smelled of pine and wood smoke, not iron, to a small antechamber, warm, firelit, a table and 2 chairs, a window over the river. He let go of my hand the way you put down a thing you had been afraid you would drop. He gestured to one of the chairs. "Sit," he said. "Please." I sat. He did not. He went to the window. He stood there with his back to me for long enough that I started to wonder if he had forgotten the conversation, and then he said, without turning, "I owe you several explanations." "Yes," I said. "I would think so." That brought his head halfway around, and I caught a glimpse of his face in profile. The corner of his mouth was doing the thing again. Whatever this man was, he was not, at his core, humorless. That surprised me. I had not allowed for it in my songbook version of him. "I will not ask you to take any oath today," he said. "I will not ask you to take any oath tomorrow. You have been brought here under circumstances I am responsible for, and I will not compound those circumstances by rushing you." "That is generous," I said. "Sire, it is not generous. It is the bare minimum of decency, and I am late to it." He turned then. He looked at me fully. "Will you tell me," he said, "what you were told about why you were sent here?" I considered him. I considered, briefly, lying. Then I told him the truth, because there was no advantage in pretending, and because something in his face suggested he already knew. "I was sent here," I said, "because my pack does not want me, and because my aunt was afraid to refuse your summons, and because everyone agreed I would not be chosen and could safely be put in the back row." "Why does your pack not want you?" "Because a healer told them, a year ago, that I cannot bear children." I said it the way you say a sentence you have said too many times. I am no longer worth a marriage. I am no longer worth a place in the line. I am being slowly arranged out of the inheritance. My aunt sent me, hoping you would either choose me, which she did not believe, or refuse me publicly enough that no one in 3 counties would ever take me, which would solve her problem. I had not meant to say all of that. It had been a long year. The words had been waiting. He had gone very still. "The healer who told your pack this," he said. "What was her name?" I told him. He nodded once. He did not speak for a long moment. Then, "Wren, I'm going to tell you something now, and I'm going to ask you to hold what I tell you without rushing to a conclusion. All right? That healer is a cousin of Lady Iseult of the Marrowbrook pack. Lady Iseult has been positioning her niece for the seat at my table for the last 5 years." I sat with that. I do not yet know whether what you were told is true. I will know within a week. I have my own healers. They will tell you the truth, in private, with kindness. You do not have to permit any examination you do not consent to. But I will say this. He chose the next words. I would have brought you here regardless of what their answer is. Today is not the first time I have known your name. I felt the floor of my chest do something complicated. "What do you mean?" I said. "I will explain that too, not today. I should tell you, before I go further, that if you have made it this far and you are still listening, stay with me." I did not understand what was happening in that room. I am not sure I understand it yet, even now, telling it back. If this story has hooked something in you, leave a small mark of it where you found me. Tap whatever it is your hand taps. Then come back. I want to tell you what happened the next morning. The next morning, he sent a maid to my door with a tray and a folded note. The tray had black bread, soft cheese, a small pot of honey, and a clay cup of something warm that smelled of cardamom. The note, in a hand I did not yet recognize, but would come to know better than my own, said, "I will be in the library after the morning council. You are welcome, but not required. T." I read it 3 times. I noticed he had not signed his title. I noticed he had used the word welcome. I went. The library at the Iron Keep is the most beautiful room I have ever stood in. 2 stories tall, wheeled ladders, reading nooks let into the stone wall, east-facing windows so the morning fills it with pale gold light and the particular silence libraries have, which is not absence of sound, but presence of attention. He was at a long table near the far window, correspondence on his left, inkpot on his right, a half-eaten apple beside the inkpot, which struck me as the most human thing I had yet seen about him. He looked up. He did not stand. He gestured to the chair across from him. I sat. "You came," he said. "You said I was welcome." "Yes, but people do not always come when they are told they are welcome, especially when they have been told other things their whole lives." I noticed he had not phrased that as a compliment. He had phrased it as a fact he had been thinking about. I did not know what to do with that, so I picked up the apple and took a bite. I had not eaten yet. He had left it there. He watched me eat his apple. The corner of his mouth did the thing. Over the next 4 days, I watched him. I watched him hold a council, 10 advisors arguing about a border tax. He did not raise his voice once. He let them argue until they were finished, then gave a ruling in 3 sentences, and the matter was over. I noticed from the doorway where I had been quietly placed that 2 of his advisors looked relieved and 3 looked annoyed, and Lady Iseult, who I had learned to identify by her cold mouth, looked as though she were filing something away for later. I watched him train. I watched him eat, quickly, absently, the way men do when food has stopped being a pleasure. I noticed that when I sat at the table, he ate more slowly. I noticed that he asked the kitchen, on the 3rd morning, what I liked. I watched him with the dogs. He had 2 old wolfhounds who followed him everywhere and pretended to be dignified. He let them put their heads in his lap when no one was looking. I saw this through a doorway and did not tell him. I filed it away, and on the 4th morning, I watched him leave a small leather-bound book on the library table and walk out for the council. I do not know why I picked it up. I had not picked up any of the other things he left on that table. I think, and I am being honest with you here, that I picked it up because something in me had begun to suspect this man was not, in fact, a stranger. That when he had said, "Today is not the first time I have known your name," he had meant it literally. The book was a register. It was a list, in his hand, of every Omega and low-rank unmated woman cast out of every tributary pack of the Iron Territories for the last 6 years. 140 names. Some with small notes in the margin. Married into the Bramblefoot pack, well placed. Apprenticed to the herb-woman at Stonewater, settled. Taken in by her mother's sister, safe. He had been finding them. He had been finding every cast-out woman in his kingdom and quietly, carefully, making sure she had landed somewhere. I turned to the most recent pages. I found my name. Wren of the Lowford Pack. Cast out as Barren spring of last year. Aunt's household, unsafe. Healer marred. Suspect Isolt influence. Bring to ceremony. Do not tell her I sent for her. Dated 4 months ago. Below that, in smaller writing, crossed off list. Too cruel to drag her from her people if she has settled. Below that, re-added. Confirmed she has not settled. She is being arranged out. Below that, in the smallest writing of all, the way you write a thing you are not yet ready to admit you have written. Find a way to make her own the choice when she comes. Do not let her feel summoned. I sat in the library with this book in my lap, and I let myself, for the first time in a year, cry. Not loudly. I am not a woman who cries loudly. I cried the way you cry when something has been waiting to be cried about for a long time, and the room is finally warm enough to permit it. I had been carrying a stone for a year, and I had not known until that moment that someone else, 3 days' ride away, had been carrying it with me. When he came back from the council, the book was on the table where he had left it, and I was in the chair across from his, and my eyes were dry by then, but he could tell. He stopped in the doorway. He looked at the book. He looked at me. "Wren," he said, "you have been finding them. For 6 years. Every cast-out woman in your kingdom." "Yes." "Why?" He came into the room. He did not sit across from me. He sat in the chair beside mine, where he had to turn to look at me. He turned to look at me. "Because the first year I was king," he said, "I learned that an alpha could let his packs do anything to their weakest members, and the alpha would never have to see it. I decided I would not be that kind of alpha. So I began the list. And me. You I have known about for a year. A healer wrote to me. Not the one who lied about you, a different one. Old. She had been my mother's healer once. She heard what had been done to you, and she sent me a letter that said, in essence, this one is being thrown away, and she should not be. You have had my name for a year. Yes, and I waited. Because I had no honest way to send for you that would not have made you a possession. I could not summon you as a king. I could not invite you privately. Your aunt would have refused. The ceremony came. I used it. I am not proud of it, but I would do it again. He looked at me. His eyes were not relieved this time. They were the look of a man who has put a thing down he has been holding for a long time and is not yet sure he is allowed to set it down. You did not choose me from the back row at random. No. You chose me because you had been crossing my name off your list and putting it back on for a year. Yes. Torvald. It was the first time I had said his name. He had not asked me to. I had heard the maids use it. It came out of me as if I had been saving it. He closed his eyes for one breath, just one. Wren. I'm going to need you, I said, slowly, to do something for me. Anything. I am going to need you to be patient while I become a woman who can believe she was wanted before she walked into your hall. He was quiet for a long moment. I have been patient for a year, he said. I can do another. I was examined by his healers the next day. They were kind, they were thorough, they were old, and they had seen many things. They told me, in private, that I was not barren. They told me I carried a dormant blood curse called the hollowing, common in the women of certain old pack lines, suppressed by mating to a wolf of strong enough bloodline, harmless once broken. They told me the healer who had told my pack otherwise had either been incompetent or had been paid. I asked which one. They looked at each other. They did not answer. I went and found Torvald in the training yard. I told him. He listened. He did not speak. He went very still in the way I had begun to recognize as the way he went still when something inside him was being decided. Then he asked me, very quietly, whether I wanted Lady Isolt's cousin brought before the council, or whether I wanted to handle her myself. I told him I would let him know. Lady Isolt made her move the following evening. She had produced a document, a healer's seal, a written certification, a witnessed statement. She brought it to the great hall at the evening meal in front of the assembled court. She said, very politely, that as a matter of public concern, the king ought to be made aware of certain medical realities concerning his guest. She read the certification aloud. It was a forgery. Torvald's healers had told me that morning exactly what the original had said and exactly how it had been altered. The court did not know. The court murmured. Torvald looked at me. I stood up. I walked the length of the high table. I did not hurry. I stopped in front of Lady Isolt. She was taller than me. She had the kind of face that has been beautiful for 30 years and was beginning to wear the work of staying so. Lady Isolt, I said, quietly, pleasantly. Yes, child. I am not a child, I said, and the woman who wrote that document is your cousin, and she lied for you. And I have the original here, in my pocket, and I have permission from the king's healers to read it aloud. The hall went very quiet. You will not embarrass yourself, she said. No, I said, I will not. I produced the original. I read it aloud. I read it without raising my voice and without inflection and without looking at her, because looking at her would have given her something to react to, and I did not want to give her anything. I read the part where the healer noted the hollowing. I read the part where she recommended a mating to a strong bloodline alpha as the indicated treatment. I read the part where she stated, in plain language, that my pack ought to be informed. Then I looked up at the hall. My pack was not informed, I said. I was not informed. I was told instead that I was barren and worthless and ought to be quietly disposed of. The healer who told me this was paid. I would like the court to know who paid her. I did not name Lady Isolt. I did not need to. The court did the math. Lady Isolt's face did something I will remember for the rest of my life. It did not crumple. It did the opposite. It froze into a perfect mask of polite outrage, and I understood, watching it, that this was the face she had worn at every dinner of her life when she had not gotten the thing she had come to get. A practiced face. I felt, briefly, sorry for her. Then I stopped feeling sorry for her. Torvald stood. Lady Isolt of Marrowbrook, he said, you are stripped of your seat at this table. You will leave the Iron Keep before dawn. Your niece is welcome to remain as a guest of the court, on her own merits, and not yours. Your cousin will be summoned to answer for her seal. Lady Isolt bowed. She left. The hall did not erupt. Iron wolves do not erupt. But I could feel, in the silence, that something had shifted that would not shift back. The binding rite happened 3 days later. He had not asked me. I had asked him. I had told him I did not want to spend the rest of my life waiting for someone else to decide I had been wanted enough. He had looked at me as though I had handed him something he had been afraid I would not, and then he had said yes. The rite is old. An iron stake driven into a ritual stone, 2 palms bound to it with cord, a spoken vow, the curse line broken by the stronger bloodline. The pack witch told me, before, that the hollowing would resist, that it would feel like cold, that I should choose, before I gripped the iron, whether I wanted to endure it or come back another year. I told her I had come 3 days on a horse in a grey dress, and I was not coming back another year. I gripped the iron. The cold came. It came up my arms and into my chest and into the back of my throat. It was the cold I had been carrying for a year, distilled. The cold of a healer's room with a candle going out. The cold of an aunt who would not look at me. The cold of being told I was a stone. The hollowing did not want to leave me. It had been comfortable. The iron cut my palm. I felt the blood. I did not let go. Torvald's hand was on the iron above mine. His palm cut too. I felt the warm of his blood against the cold of mine. He said the vow. I said the vow. The pack witch said the words that broke the curse line. The cold went out of me. All at once. The way breath leaves a room when a window opens. I felt, for the first time in a long time, warm. He said my name. He kissed me then. I will not describe the kiss. I will tell you what broke open in me when it landed. I will tell you that I understood, in that one moment, that I had been wanted before I walked into his hall, and that I was wanted now, and that the wanting was not a thing that depended on whether I could give him an heir, or a Luna's bloodline, or anything at all. That the wanting was simply the fact of me, observed across a year of his quiet, patient list-keeping, and chosen. I had not known you could be chosen like that. I do now. He pulled back. He looked at me. He said, loud enough for the hall to hear, the line I have heard quoted back to me 100 times since, by maids and pack mothers and travelling singers who have made the mistake of singing it where I can hear them. She was never coming here to fill a seat. The seat has been hers since I learned her name. 6 months later, I sat in the Luna's chair at his table, without thinking about it. That was how I knew it had become mine. I forgot to be careful about sitting in it. The chair had been empty for 11 years. He had not let anyone use it. The maids told me, after, that the kitchen staff had a small private bet about how long it would take me to claim it without being prompted. I won someone 3 coppers. I do not know who. The court had transformed, in those 6 months, in ways that were small and stubborn and real. 2 more cast-out women had been brought from the list and quietly placed. A new healer had been installed at Marrowbrook. My aunt had written me 3 letters, each one a degree warmer than the last. I had not yet answered. I would. Eventually. Not yet. Torvald sat beside me at every meal. He still ate quickly. He still wrote letters in the library while I read in the chair across from him. He still pretended his wolfhounds were dignified, and they still put their heads in his lap when they thought no one was looking. And I still pretended not to see. He used my name more than he used his own. On the morning of the longest day of the year, 6 months after the binding, I went down to the Great Hall before anyone else was awake. I do not know why. I think I wanted to see the chair without anyone in it, the way I had first seen it, across a crowded hall full of women in their best dresses. I sat in it. I sat in the Luna's chair, alone, in the empty hall, in the grey light before the fires were lit. I thought about the girl in the grey dress who had stood in the back row of that hall and counted in her head all the women who had come home alone. She had not come home alone. She had come home. Tell me, if her voice carried you all the way here, where are you tonight, and what made you stay? Tell me in the comments. And if you would like to hear the next story from this side of the bond, stay with us. Follow Moon and Iron. Her side of the story is only just beginning.